This one will probably be a little bit controversial. So let's try not to make it controversial. Let me just state at the beginning before I talk about this, I'm not saying Israel is good or bad, but I just want to explain a bit of theology involving what evangelicals, particularly non-denominational. Okay, if you know who I am, I'm Suzanne Tidkemeyer. I used to write a column called No Longer Quivering for Pathos for 10 years. And I always have opinions on anything that is religious related, particularly when it's something that comes out of squishy bad theology. Like this is one of those squishy bad theology things that I just cannot even. Okay, just let me say, don't bully anybody. These are just my opinions. And this is just one of those things that's so awful. Hey, Celine, I was originally going to talk about family finances, handling family finances, because somebody reminded me the other day of Dave Ramsey and the whole Financial Peace University thing. And it was kind of funny because some people I talked to said, "Oh, it's the best thing ever." And there are a lot of us looking at it going, "Girl, please," because it doesn't work for everybody. And it surely does not teach you how to handle your money responsible as far as like saving for retirement and that sort of thing. And the things it suggests are pretty simplistic. They're simplistic and they don't always work for everybody. So Israel, unless you're living under a rock or you don't have any access to news, you will have known that Hamas has sent rockets into Israel. They have sent rockets in, killed a lot of people. And they've done a number of attacks and pulled people over for hostages. It's an awful situation. It's not anything positive that's going on over there at all. You can kind of see this coming for some years. Israel has started to retaliate. It is what it is. It's not good. I pray for peace in the region myself. But I have to look at and talk about why a lot of evangelicals are just really just rejoicing over this news. They're all happy about it. And why would that be? Well, in my years living in evangelical town, I can tell you, support of Israel was that was just a given. Someone under Transformed Wife Community Post said my desire for a no virgin guy was inordinate. My ultimate ideal is to have the experienced guy be attentive and teach me. Try dating a virgin. Celine, I wouldn't pay any attention to anything coming out of anybody over there supporting Lori because they're going to have awful ideas. There's nothing wrong with your idea. Choose what you want. So back to this. So the evangelicals will support Israel no matter what. I saw that in my old church. People were flying Israeli flags and all sorts of strange things, including using shofars. Chauffeurs. It sounds like they're getting driven around. No, it's a curly ram's horn that you blow through that talks about in the Bible that the priests of Israel used. So they're all mixed up in a lot of ways. They're thinking that modern Israel bears a relationship with old Israel, which it doesn't really. If you look at your Bible and you look at what they say, it's not the same thing. Dating a virgin is someone who's also a virgin, even if the relationship is good in all other aspects. The guy being inexperienced like me made me go crazy then. I'm sure it did. I'm sure it must have been super frustrating. I don't know if I could handle that. So, what is behind all this Israel love? Well, what's behind it is squishy and racist and not very nice. We went a solid 4 months. Well, it's a little ways of dating somebody. So, and racism doesn't play too small of a part in that. A lot of these churches that do this sort of thing or support these kinds of Israel overall, they have one reason for doing that. They want to see Jesus come back. And if they have to support Israel and say Israel has a right to exist and cannot and has to kill the Hezbollah, Hamas, whoever, it's all just a ploy to get Jesus to come back early. That's why they support Israel. That's the one reason. So it doesn't have anything about loving the Israelis. There's nothing about that. There's nothing about loving the Palestinians. There's nothing about loving anyone. And they use it as a cover to be able to be racist against Muslim people and say that they're all the same, which is not true. We hung out almost every day, so even though it wasn't that long, it was a lot of time spent together. Well, that's necessary to figure out what it is you like. You really have to spend time with somebody else. Silly. Um, so they use it as a cover to hate on Muslims. They only are interested in the Israelis just to provoke the war, just to provoke World War III. So Armageddon will happen and Jesus will come back. It's not because they love the Israelis at all. And that's really the thing that I could not stand about it. It's one thing if you love people and you say, I'm concerned for them, I love them, blah, blah, blah. It talks about that a lot, like the Bible, about loving everybody. That means Muslim anybody's. That means Hindu anybody's. That means all of that. But they tend to just focus on a few little things. So there's no love. They just want to get rid of all scary brown people. And they want to provoke Jesus coming back as soon as possible. Okay, so that's all I had to say about that. Celine, so where are you going to find this guy at that you want to date who's older? Because see, for me, that is my question for you: is where are you meeting these guys at? Or is it at church or is it at other places? The problem with meeting some of them at these evangelical churches is if you're meeting an older man who's experienced, most of the time they are just about completely enmeshed in the whole toxic patriarchy thing. So I would be very careful about where you're meeting these guys at. You don't know, just kind of around. Yeah, I don't know what to tell you. I've always dated guys that were older than myself because guys in my own age group were just too immature and stupid most of the time is what I came up with. I look back at that and I'm like, why? The whole conflict is not straightforward. No, it is not straightforward. Not at all. There's so much to discuss, but in my humble opinion, not many are not too willing to be honest about the whole thing. Fine, mom. Here's the thing. Not dating in church. Good. A two-state solution would be the solution if they could quit poking at each other. I look back at the Camp David Accords under President Jimmy Carter, and I'm like, why couldn't we have worked that out? Why? You know, it would have been the solution. And when the British set this up, when they set Israel up, that was the plan, was my understanding. It was supposed to be a two-state solution, which would have been a good thing, but it didn't quite work out that way. And for some years, it's been pretty awful on both sides. And as Israel has grown and taken over the West Bank and all these places that they didn't have any business going to and settling in, it's gotten even worse. So there's enough blame to go around for both sides as far as I'm concerned. Um, I know that's not popular to say, but that is kind of where I am on this. I hope and pray for a peaceful solution, but I don't see how that's going to happen. Earlier today I was watching a historical YouTuber that I like. He is somebody I know that does these different things about history, and I get to hear about the USS Liberty, which is almost completely erased from history It's not in history books. The survivors have been told not to talk about it. The USS Liberty was a ship that was strictly a listing ship, like a spy post, that was in the Mediterranean during the 7-Day War. Was it 7 day? The war they had in 1967. My brain is gone. I've taken my medication. So they had this listening ship. They were trying to listen to both sides and listen to all the things. And Israel knew it was an American ship, and they came and attacked it, and they killed a number of people on the ship. There were 30 some odd dead. It was gruesome. They knew it was American. You could hear there was radio transmissions where the Israelis heard that knew that it was Americans. They identified the ship that way. The ship was flying a giant flag, and they still attacked. And nothing was done. Nothing, nothing, nothing. I'm not even sure there was any kind of apology or anything. But Lyndon Johnson didn't do anything. He was up for re-election and wasn't about to rock the boat. I don't think there's anything wrong with wanting an older, experienced man who will be attentive to your experiences and pleasure as long as you're not pressured and want it. The song Near My God to Thee was actually a song they were playing on the Titanic as the ship went down. They sure were. I read about that too. I think about those poor musicians on the Titanic playing as the ship was going down. I can't think of anything more horrific than knowing you're going to your death in the depths. That was just a huge, huge thing. One of those things that they're still figuring out everything about. So, who is the history person you watch? I'm always interested in learning history. Let me see if I can pull up the person. What they did was they had shared a documentary done by I used to like to watch Al Jazeera when we had it on our cable lineup back in the States because they were pretty good about showing both sides of issues. But a lot of times our news media is not. Okay. So that guy was If Americans Knew, and he has some interesting things. Now, I don't believe all of the history ones that I watch, but I will tell you there are a fair number of good historians out there on YouTube. I also like the history guy. He also tackles those really tough things. And I'm not seeing much going on. No problem, Laura. I'm not seeing much going on where anyone is talking about these conflicts except to promote one side or another. And truthfully, in historical context, there's usually two sides. I hate Dr. Phil, but he's right when he says, even a pancake has two sides. There's always two sides. I always say, look at both sides. I was kind of hoping that people would step back and not make any rash decisions while this was going on. But of course, that's not the course that was taken. Wallace or William Hartley was only 33, the main musician. Yeah, I read that too. I heard that. Can't imagine. Just like I can't imagine how frantic the family members must be of the people that were taken as hostages going across the border. That just completely dumbfounds me that they would do that. They need to just let those people go. No matter what happens, as long as they're not trying to solve this in a diplomatic way, it's going to be horrible for somebody. And it's always those little people, the people who aren't involved in the fight, that have no dog in the fight at all, they're the ones that are going to pay the price. It's always the way it is with war. I am against war in every way, shape, or form. Believe in diplomatic solutions. But what happened with the USS Liberty? While we didn't go to war with Israel, I'm not sure that any, quote, diplomatic solution happened either. It looks like everything I've heard is they just buried it. They covered it up. But that's what our government tends to do sometimes with some things. I was pretty astounded when they announced that about extraterrestrials recently. I was really shocked that they made that admission that there'd been extraterrestrial sightings and the like, and then there was a whole division. I mean, we'd been hearing about this for years, gossiped, but nobody ever could say for sure, oh, yeah, that was what happened. So I'm curious to see what information the government is going to release on the UFOs and the aliens. I'd like to see that. UFO sightings are not as uncommon as you would think. So I may do a video on that sometime because that's one of the things that always made me laugh about the fundamentalist Christians I know and the evangelicals is they all claim that aliens are not aliens, they're demonic in nature and have come to seduce humanity by um, various and sundry things. Well, I don't know. Every account of being captured by an alien and probed up the butt doesn't sound so seductive to me. It sounds pretty horrible and experimental, like the kind of experiments that certain regimes do to their enemies, is really what it sounded like to me. So I'm curious about what's going to happen with that, if we're ever going to see the paperwork. I mean, show me what you got so that we can make decisions about that while we think about those things. Anyway, I better go. I just wanted to hop on here real quick and point out that evangelicals want to see Israel fight with everyone in the Arab world, not just one nation, but all of them, so that Jesus will come back. And that is not a reason to support a nation. That is not a reason. There are plenty of other reasons to dislike and like the various nations in that part of the region, that part of the world, but that's not it. Love you guys. I'll see you later. Have a great Tuesday.